Angela ignored every medical order and took her son Connor, barely out of heart surgery, straight to an amusement park. Just minutes earlier, she had mocked and humiliated Dr. Leo, the very surgeon who had pulled her boy back from the edge of death. A high-intensity ride shattered his fragile heart in minutes. He started coughing violently, blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. She went into full panic, fumbling to wipe his face. A stranger told her Mercy Medical Center was right next door, but she and her best friend both recoiled in fear. Just days earlier, they had deeply offended the hospital's star surgeon, Dr. Leo. Terrified of walking into retaliation, they made the insane choice to skip the nearest ER and race to a different hospital entirely. That one decision burned through the last of Connor's golden window. By the time they reached Fairview Hospital, Connor had slipped into a deep coma. A nurse came out of the trauma bay, and her words sent ice through the room. The outlook was devastating. They needed to prepare themselves. Connor's father, Mr. Hartford, burst in right then. He looked at his wife sobbing in the hallway, and there was nothing in his eyes but cold fury. He had warned her over and over that their son needed absolute rest after surgery. Her moment of weakness had led straight to this catastrophe. His voice was a low growl. If their son didn't make it, she was going with him. In another or at Mercy Medical Center, an even deeper crisis was unfolding. Dr. Leo, the young lead surgeon, was operating on a child who had fallen from a building. But now, the scalpel in his hand was shaking violently. Cold sweat soaked through his scrubs. A past surgical failure had carved a psychological block so deep he couldn't push through. His hands had given out at the worst possible moment. Just as despair closed in on everyone, an elderly man stepped forward. He was the chief of Mercy Medical Center, and he had undergone open-heart surgery himself just 2 days earlier. He took the scalpel from Leo's hand without hesitation, ignoring every voice telling him to stop. He was betting his own unhealed body on the faintest sliver of a chance. Moved by the chief's spirit, Leo finally overcame his inner demons and picked up the scalpel once more. But Connor's vitals were still crashing. When the nurse came back out and told the family his heart had completely failed and all they were seeing was a final surge, their restraint shattered. Connor lay in his mother's arms, crying out in pain with the last of his strength. That grief twisted into violent rage. Mr. Hartford grabbed the doctor by the collar and screamed he would bring the entire hospital down with his son. In the chaos, the best friend's memory suddenly jolted. Fairview couldn't save him, but someone else could. The surgeon they had wronged. Dr. Leo, the top cardiac surgeon in the country. The one person who might still reverse the irreversible. His name hit Mr. Hartford like a lightning bolt. A second ago, he had been screaming at his wife. Now, only raw agony was left on his face. He made his final decision. He would go back to Mercy Medical Center himself. Whatever it took, even if he had to get on his knees, he would bring Leo back. For his son's life, and for his wife's fatal mistake, one last act of penance. A scalpel slid through skin. Dr. Leo was locked in total focus, carefully dissecting the diseased tissue. He had no idea that outside the door, a group was about to pull the main breaker and hold every patient's life hostage to force him to stop. Angela stormed Mercy Medical Center with a security team. Her target was singular. They shoved past nurses and headed straight for the only or with its light still on at the end of the corridor. The door flew open, shattering the sterile field in an instant. The assisting surgeon shouted at the intruders to get out, but Angela dropped to her knees on the floor. She sobbed that her son Connor had crashed because she had stupidly let him go on a thrill ride, and he was dying right now. She grabbed onto Leo's pant leg and begged him to save her son immediately. Leo shook her off without even looking down. He was in the middle of a critical procedure and would not be distracted. Angela's friend jumped in, accusing the doctor of being heartless. Right then, the chief arrived, and behind him, a man whose presence filled the room. It was Mr. Hartford. He cut straight to the point. He was also here to bring Dr. Leo back to save their son. The chief tried to explain there was no world in which a surgeon could walk out mid-surgery, but Angela had already slipped past reason. She insisted the patient on the table wasn't even critical, while her own son was dying. Mr. Hartford's approach was brutally simple. He threw a number at the chief. 100 million. If that wasn't enough, $1 billion. He wanted to buy the life on that operating table so the doctor could free up his hands. The chief shut it down instantly. Life didn't have a price tag, and Dr. Leo would never agree to a deal like that. Mr. Hartford's patience ran out. He gave his final warning. If the hospital refused, he would solve this his own way. Angela's frenzy detonated. She gave her men the most malicious order yet. Cut the main power to the entire hospital. She planned to use every patient in the building as leverage to force the surgeon to stop. The color drained from the chief's face. He knew that the second the power cut, every ICU patient on a ventilator or monitor would die instantly. It was outright slaughter. He stopped playing defense. He ordered his security chief to deploy every guard to protect every electrical panel and declared he would bear full legal responsibility. Mr. Hartford's eyes went dead cold. He raised his hand and waved his men forward to force their way in and drag the doctor out. Just as both sides were about to collide in violence, the light above the door switched off. The surgery was a success. Dr. Leo pulled off his mask and walked out, exhaustion written across every line of his face. A colleague at the hospital briefed him on the situation. Without a moment's pause, Leo agreed and started moving to the other hospital to save Connor. That was when tragedy struck. One of Mr. Hartford's men threw a punch at the chief to clear the path. Leo, stepping out the door at that exact second, stepped right between them. The fist connected square against his head. The surgeon who had just pulled one life back from the brink, who was on his way to save another, hit the ground unconscious. The diagnosis was a severe concussion. The only doctor who could save Connor was now a patient himself, and the architect of this entire disaster, the hysterical mother, stood over his unconscious body and kept screaming. She demanded Leo get up right now and operate on her son. She would never understand, not even to the end. that it was her own arrogance and stupidity that had personally sealed her son's fate for good.